So do I mention?
Oh, yeah. Actually, we just started. So, peace, everyone. This is the Bell Thanos. I'm here with my lovely sister, one of my favorites, Adjua. And we wanted to talk about something a little bit different today, especially since over the past few weeks we've been trying to discuss different things of how we're going to develop or how we want to develop our own nation and what that all entails. So, this topic specifically is about foreign policy. Now, I don't know a lot about foreign policy, so those of you who do, feel free to chime in. We all know probably just a little bit about it. We see what's going on in the news, we see what's going on in the media. But basically, foreign policy, as we know, is just this includes global affairs, current events, domestic and international policy, and basically developing a relationship between one nation and another. How are you going to work together? What kind of systems or policies you have in place to make sure it's a healthy relationship so both nations can benefit from. So I have my sister here, Adjua, who dabbled a little bit in it. So this is why I said this topic is perfect for her to pull her into it. So Adjua, can you tell us a little bit about what you were just telling me a minute ago? That you did this a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, so I currently, so my discipline in graduate school was international public policy and also nonprofit management. I am currently in HR, so I work as a HR analyst. And prior to that, I did work for a research firm that most of my clients were domestic, but also catered to international research for many foundations. A lot of my clients also they were international, but it affected more. It affected the domestic policy more than the international sphere. So that's really my background. As I told Sister Bella Thanos, is that I'm interested in it because of Pan Africanism and how it affects us. Anyway, I mean, it's one of those things that, especially regarding African, is something that we have to be aware of the surrounding countries and the policies that affect many different African countries and how it would affect us. So it's one of those things that we have to be kind of well versed in it, or be aware of what's going on and how it affects us.
All right. And actually, one of the reasons why I went with this particular title, I try to keep it really simple. I'm not as fluid with making the titles for the shows like our good brother Dawood, which he's really good. I probably should have asked him, but I went with the foreign policy for the foreign African because technically we would be the foreign African. The people from the diaspora, or especially African Americans who don't all recognize with the African continent. So we would be considered the foreign African. So how do we kind of work on our relations with like you said, the surrounding countries and the surrounding area? And we see what's going on there. Different countries just have so many things going on. Like a lot of it is, scary and disheartening and just like, oh my God, dude. Like, what do we do? Like, it just seems almost hopeless in a way. But I'm pretty optimistic about this. So it's just going to be kind of developing a healthy relationship and hoping that the all populations or all the people within those surrounding areas can actually benefit. Now, sis, have you thought about this a lot? I know you said, with Pan African, it kind of ran into your head, like, how does it work for us? How do we go about doing this? Have you thought about this a lot with the current African countries and what's going on and, in different regions? You there?
Ooh, yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I put myself on mute. I have, because you think about how we are going to move back home, and again, just like you said, and it's a great example. We are foreign Africans, so I feel that some of us are going to assume that the government is going to move the same way it does here, and not necessarily. Um, I am still hopeful, although reading about most of the African countries' relationship with China is scary. And then you also think about emerging conflict that are in some countries and how that may affect us, especially in the Congo area and Angola, how those things will affect us, because it will. We're just going to be added into the equation, the foreign African, and in addition to these conflicts that have already existed. And you have to think about that because, just go there now. I'm sorry. I'm traveling today, so that's why if I sound like I sound far away, I do apologize. But yeah, so you have to think about that as well, and those things will affect the policies that we try to enact. Those things will affect our everyday life. So I do think about that. I try to stay current with the events that are going on, not only in those areas, but just all over. Just for example, like Sierra Leone and declining the airport, the funding from China. Yeah, you think about those things because that can be a cascade event. That could be the domino effect as far as how many of us interact with China. China being the most, the biggest investor in Africa, hands down. That is just what it is, and so that could possibly change things. That you have a leader that said, no, we're not going to put ourselves in further debt.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting you brought that up because I saw that Sierra Leone. Kyla posted it on Facebook. That was actually, I was like, what? Someone turned down China? And then I just got skeptical, like, wait, why? Like, what else is going on? So I've been reeling about it. I don't know if you guys saw that, but yeah. So, it seemed, when I looked into it, it seems like they had a previous arrangement from like a year ago with China where they talked about it, or the previous president of Sierra Leone or whatever kind of put the wheels in motion to upgrade one of their airports. To upgrade one of their airports. But apparently it's not their main airport when I looked at it. It's like there's
it isn't.
To like a secondary airport or something. Sierra Leone was just like,
I think it's in Freetown or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you guys can definitely find it on the internet pretty easily. I think I want to say it might be in California, but it was definitely on Facebook, and I looked at the article. And Sierra Leone's point was just like, well, that's an old airport. It doesn't make financial sense to be in debt to you guys for an airport we barely use anyway. That's just ridiculous. So there was like rather focus on building their current airport that's really popular that everyone uses. But even in that, it didn't say whether or not they were going to let China invest in even their current one. So it made sense, but when they said that, but it just kind of got me thinking, like, I wonder what happens after this. Like, what happens when other countries see this that's around Sierra Leone? Because what do you have there? You have like Senegal and Gambia and
Ghana,
Ghana, all of that, which
the whole area.
Heavily invested in that area as well. So it's really interesting. So you're right, like seeing that and what the events that's going to take place. And then, many of you have seen probably this too, and I believe Dr. Mumbi did a show on it too, how Russia is now in the Central African Republic, or they probably been there for some time, but they're like kind of bringing in weapons for the locals, kind of just inciting what we've already seen several times over, corrupt government. And now you have all these different factions, all these different militant groups that just, want to do their own thing. And basically now you're just giving them the resources to kill each other off. Obviously.
And they're in Kenya. And they're in Kenya too.
You see?
Kenya appears to be the hub for a lot of European entities and, just foreign entities altogether for them to be so so sovereign. I find that really interesting.
You know what that is? That's a good point.
Makes no sense to me. The quote unquote sovereign nation. Even Sierra Leone, I remember the current president kind of stated that they want to continue to be a sovereign nation because they don't want to get into debt, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing they kind of mentioned, I can't remember if it was an NPR article or BBC. I read a bunch of different ones, but the fact that they said they're not sure if there's going to be because this was a previous contract, that even for them to decline, will they still have to owe China? So you have to remember, a lot of times when you pull out of contracts, there's still a debt owed. And that could possibly occur. Even if other countries fall in line with that, will they still have to owe China for reneging on the contract? It's something I'm really curious to know. Right. Because if you know what I mean, as far as like, even if you pull out of certain projects, to still be in debt and not even have the project, I don't know how those things would occur. But that's something that he was also concerned with, because he was like, well, because we're on good terms right now, but we're not sure what that means as far as as far as payment, if we would still have to owe them, because they have to kind of like review that contract. We don't know.
Yeah, no, we don't. It's just it's interesting to see all this about Kenya too. Like, I don't know. It saddens me too, because I'm like, God, they're just so big. So they have so much, and yet they have so little because of their relationship with with China and other nations. And just to get back into foreign policy. Foreign policy is a very general term. As we know, it covers so many different things. I mean, besides like just diplomatic relations, we're talking about how you do business with other countries, which can obviously affect your economy. How are you going to make money? How are they going to make money? And making sure you do trade and get supplies from each other, resources, how are you going to sell it, at what rate. This also includes what else? Like, you're going into more of like global development and globalization, and just making sure that you want your nation to benefit. Every nation basically has to have some type of foreign policy, or some type of development within their foreign policy to keep themselves sustainable. Just because, again, like, you're surrounded by other places, you may rely on these neighbors for your own survival. So it's going to be really important to develop like a crucial, system or policy in place that'll keep it so everyone can make it. And if I didn't say this, peace to everyone in the chat. Thanks for joining us, Brother Nubian, Odas 80, Dendata, New York. Thank you for us. I'm happy you guys are available on this Saturday afternoon, as my sister's in the car driving as she does this, because she's staying multitasking.
I feel like I'm always like cooking, doing laundry, driving, or something when I'm on the phone with you.
There's always something going on. But no, if the chat had any ideas or anything in terms of foreign policy you noticed or you want to talk about, definitely throw it in there. Let us know. Going back, like, multinational corporations have a huge thing to do with foreign policy. We see this, like, perfect example, oil companies, like how much they're involved in countries. So that's something to take into consideration. What kind of relationship happen?
Right. I was just thinking about that. I mean, because even when you think about how policy shapes everything, when you think about privatization, you think, Nigeria with the water situation and how that is being privatized, and the companies that they are shortlisting to do the project. And for what I understand, and I don't recall the name, but one of the companies have been implicated in the issue with the Flint water, and so you just, it makes absolutely no sense sometimes when you think like, how that would affect, how that would affect, Nigeria is a huge landmass, how that would affect those people and how that would affect the neighboring countries as well. That's something that, to me, you don't want to fall in trend with, where we're now privatizing everything. I mean, essentially, that's what has happened to the continent anyway. But but at this extent, where basic water and needs like that are privatized, and we already know that our people in Flint and that surrounding area in Flint have been poisoned, and they continue to be poisoned. And
that whole situation. To talk a little bit about that, if you guys don't know, like we obviously know, the Flint, Michigan situation is the lead in the water. There are already naturally, I don't want to say natural, but probably due to the fiber network coming, there are already small amounts of lead in almost everybody's water. What you probably don't realize, or you probably do, is it's typically more prevalent in urban, suburban area, not really suburban, but like basically like the hoods, the ghettos, like because their plumbing, their piping, it's not like it's upkept. There's not like as much maintenance or upkeep to it, and it's not like we're maintaining it. So there's even higher levels of lead, and also you can even go into conspiracy theories that it's intentional. That hell, I can't disprove that. But you know, it's just it's worse. Basically, lead levels are typically always worse when you're dealing with inner cities. You know, ghetto neighborhoods, basically neighborhoods where it's predominantly Black people. With the Flint, Michigan situation, it's like 10 times that, which is really, really sad. And it's been like this for years, even before they reported, they found it out. And I want to say over the past year or so, they actually was letting the blame fall on to, I want to say the Black mayor, the woman of that city, because they had proof that they brought it to the state level, they brought it to the Senate, they brought it to their government and everything, and they kept denying it, saying, no, it's not there, you don't have enough proof, and then when they had like the studies done and the research behind it to prove, no, it is really high, and all these people are sick, and all these people in the surrounding area are suffering from it, that's when they're like, well, what was the mayor of that city doing? No, it just so happens to be the mayor is a Black woman. So it's like, oh, so we're just gonna let her take the fault for this when she didn't design the infrastructure personally. But if you don't know what lead does, high levels of lead in your system, what it does, it basically causes, it can cause a lot of, for adults, it really won't do too much. I'm probably getting ahead of myself, because down the road, if it causes cancer or not, I don't know. But for children, it can have an effect. It can have an effect on their ability to learn. Basically,
talk about the intellectual.
It'll mess with their intellect because it has an effect on their ability to basically behave, to be able to sit still, to listen, all those things that they would need to function in school. So you can see where this is going if they're getting high levels, especially even early in life during the crucial parts of like brain development. And so what's going to happen, because I was actually speaking to one of the providers I work with about this, he's like, obviously these kids are all going to be diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. They're going to need all kinds of meds. And he said, and don't be surprised, and this is funny because this is a white man telling me this. He's like, do not be surprised within the next decade if they start to develop a prison in Flint, Michigan. He's like, this is by no means any accident whatsoever. He's like, oh, no.
Right.
Like, and this is so interesting because this is an old white man telling me this. He's like, this was intentional. This was very much intentional to basically.
Right. Because they need jobs there. So those people, so they'll be able to employ, people in that area. There'll be another job boost. Because think about Kansas and all these other rural places. Mm-hmm. Most of their economy relies on these private prisons. And then think about it. So the president of Nigeria, I think it's Buhari or something like that. Tell me, a heavily populated area such as Nigeria, why would he do that?
Right.
So to have, and what we all say, one of the most successful Africans is the Nigerian, right? Mm-hmm. And on so many levels as far as education, what would that do to them to now have to risk their intellectual property, so to speak?
Yeah, that's like
you sold these people out.
And it's sad because how many is in Nigeria? What, 200 million? Or more?
I don't. Yeah.
I know it's supposed to increase over the next couple of years.
Right.
So like we see how important it is to develop a foreign policy that you want to make sure benefits your nation. Which is really sad to see these African countries doing it opposite. Like they're not even paying attention to that. It's like do something to line their pockets at the expense of their own population. So it's
right.
Oh my God.
But it's always disguised as progressive capital, progressive development. It's always disguised as bringing business to those countries and working on infrastructure, etc. It's not seen as what it is, colonialism, just being billed as something else. And it's not seen as warfare. So as far as with the water, we all know that's warfare. That's bio warfare.
That is.
And no one thinks about those. How could that really affect us there? So even when you think of so actually lost my train of thought, driving at the same time. But when you just think about those relationships and how that would affect the next country, and again, I don't know if they're going to continue to work with that company or not, but it does set the precedent. It really does. And then you even think about when we're talking about Angola and we're talking about Congo. With Angola, they're trying to repair their relationship with the Portuguese. Why? I don't understand. So when you think about that, what's the ripple effect of that? What does that actually mean? Why do I need to work on the relationship with my former, quote unquote, former colonizer? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, and these nations, who knows? I mean, there's so many. You're talking about years, decades of some, toxic history with the colonizers and everything, and Lord knows what they have left. And they could be physically out. We don't really know who's in there. They're pulling the strings or what. So that's something to take into consideration. But just even going to that, with foreign policy, you still deal with you deal with quite a few topics, even stuff like global warming, poverty, obviously, hell, even women empowerment. I know you guys don't want to hear that, but that's part of it too. And of course,
yeah. Because even when you think about that, so if we just talk about social policy and how that's all enfolded in that. Social policies, although I know Hola doesn't like this conversation, but the fact that now more African leadership are talking about gay rights. This is the truth. This is something that they're discussing. Obama, for example, is regarding Kenya and foreign aid. There, that he talked about how he wasn't going to continue to help Kenya with this particular foreign aid, and I forgot the name of it, until they accepted this cause of gay rights. And I know that was an issue with the president at the time. But you think about now, just like it was with birth control attached to a lot of these foreign policy, this foreign aid, in order for many African countries to receive it, they had to abide by immunizations and birth control, which has heavily affected our numbers and our health. Now they're adding LGBTQ, X, Y, and Z, whatever rights to these same policies, to these bills now. What does that mean? Even with Malimba, and a lot of people love Malimba and Azania, that's still an issue right there, because he talks about it. And how does that affect? Because naturally that's not a part of our culture, regardless of what country on the continent. But now that that's being applied, and whether people want to seem like it's forced, that's now a part of the discussion. And what's the fear, in my opinion, is that overlooks the basic rights, the rights of the African people. Because I don't think it should be on a platform when we're still talking about how the black man in Africa on his own land is being treated like crap. And yet, and we're supposed to be in a quote unquote sovereign country, and yet I'm here on a platform talking about gay rights. That's BS. So we have to be wary of these policies now, that just as it has happened here, is now it's foreshadowing. It's shadowing all these other issues. We're no longer, when we talk about civic rights and we talk about social rights here in America, they come up first. The feminism and gay rights come up before we even talk about the rights of the black man and woman and child, And in my opinion, that's my fear when it comes to the continent, because now we're seeing that these same issues are being forced there, and that's not the main issue in those countries. It's just not. Right. You know, we need to talk about the Russian that was beating up a bunch of African men in Kenya. We need to talk about we need to talk about the white all the missionaries that come there and molest our children there. You know, this stuff is way more important than that. But there's an agenda behind that. Why is that now being forced? Why is that now the main policies that are being applied to these countries? And that's not the main issues in these countries.
Right.
My opinion.
That, like, you pieced it together way more than I did. Now, when you worked in or when you did a little bit of international relations, did you help write some policies or whoever you worked with?
So what we did is that we conducted the research that helped shape these policies. So, for example, you would have a wealthy foundation that wants to get a lay of the land before they go forward with the policy, and they would say, okay, we need to find out if what would be a better. So we did one in go ahead. We did one that was a part of the Middle East thing. It was about women's rights. But I can't remember that. Well, I can't mention the foundation anyway. That wouldn't be good. But anyway, we researched not only that population there, but we had to research the affected population in the UK, because a lot of it was Pakistan, but a lot of the descendants, they came from, they were in UK, their people were from there, so how that would affect them. So we would do something like, we would conduct the research, whether it be by phone, in person, through web service, and whatever we got back, that would help shape that policy for that foundation, whatever they were working on. Most of my research will be conducted here in the States, and so most of my stuff was based on health. So we did a lot of research based on current health policy, who actually needed it. So now, instead of it being African Americans, it's more geared towards Hispanics, which we would consider Hispanics to be, Mexican, Puerto Rican, such the like. But even that will be broken down. So most of my stuff was dealt with in that. We do a lot of like poll stuff, so it would be more stuff like the CNN polls that you would see, or CBS polls, and it would say this group of people felt this way about the president. That's the type of stuff that we did. So our research would help dictate how the policy was written and how the policy would be applied, if that makes sense. So we didn't help write it, but the research that we conducted, the results of that research would help shape that. So, yeah.
Right. Okay, no, thanks for giving that. I was just looking at the chat. Odos 80 says, well, to be honest, before we talk about any of those topics, the subject of African political naivety has to be discussed.
Yeah. True.
Well, we do a ton of mobile data. People don't get that
True.
much.
I think that most of this stuff wouldn't occur if we weren't in that situation. I don't think, I mean, honestly, I think that none of us really understand the process, whether it be the African that resides in, in the States, or the African, just the African abroad, or the African on the continent. I think that we tend to be a little bit more savvy. We understand a little bit more here in the States, but I still feel like we are bamboozled too. We don't get it either, right, to the extent that, we can never catch up. They're always 5, 6, 10 steps ahead of us, regarding how these things work.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's sad because, like, even the African countries, they can't catch up. And then, truthfully, they don't even care. Like, they don't even care. One of our members in Uganda, and we had a chat last night, a conference call last night. And I was telling how one of our BAIO members in Uganda was telling me and a few other members how things are working over there with, like China coming in, they're promising to build these
Thank you.
manufacturing centers or factories, which obviously would offer employment because they're not getting the employment opportunities from their current government or their current state or so. So they accept, this contract is trying to come in. He said they'll promise to pay them what would be equivalent to what, the cost of living there. So obviously all these young kids and stuff would take the job, all these, guys in their 20s and everything, because they're looking for employment. So they'll take the job and come to find out they're getting paid next to nothing. Like almost like it's just disgusting. He's like, what they pay them, you can't even feed off of for a month. What the equivalent, because he said an apartment or enough for a person to really live would probably be about $150 to $200 US a month over there. Like they would offer them a job that would pay about $200 a month. This is the Chinese manufacturers, the Chinese coming into these jobs. And he said they'll take the job with the intent. The people take the job hoping they're going to get paid that.
That's the bill every month.
And then come to find out they only get paid like $15 a month. So like basically the Chinese is holding on to the money and giving a cut to whatever whoever in government is going to let them get away with that.
Right.
So and it's just, of course, who suffers? The people. So I was just like, oh my God.
I feel like they get every which way. Oh gosh, the governments are just so corrupted. And even if, people just dig so many ways. I don't even know what to say. You can think about the policies that are in place that will even if they don't have manufacturing and they're promising manufacturing there in the country. What about the countries that don't have manufacturing there? That's not being promised. However, how did they agree to? What official agreed to have their natural resources taken away from their country, manufactured somewhere else, so you don't get those jobs, then sold back to the people? And how many countries is that happening to right now? And whether it be chocolate, whether it be fruit, whether it be think about it. Okay. I don't understand. We are naive in that. I don't understand how those things could happen. But then again, I live in a state, and how many times have I believed in whatever politician and supported, and they did nothing for me? I believed in Obama in the beginning. I was naive to believe in that. And he made things, in a lot of other places worse. He did nothing for me,
All right.
But he helped enacted policies that, where slavery is popping in Northern Africa right now. He's helped with a lot of things that are further destroying the continent. What are you gonna say? I don't know. But what the brother said is right. But I don't know how you fix those things. I don't even, we can address them, but I don't even know how you fix it. Because I'm just being honest,
So let me take a look here. And there is a difference. I was just looking at something. Sorry about the silence, guys. I didn't say peace to everyone who joined us. Sorry for the noise in Adra's background. She is driving, so
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I think they're used to it by now. But yeah, so we're trying to multitask and do a few things. So yes, this is what I saw. A lot of people, when they think of foreign policy, also think of international relations. But there's actually quite a bit of difference between those two. So just so we separate the two, international relations is more of a broad and comprehensive term. It refers to the explanation between
they're different, but they rely on one another. Yeah.
And then foreign policy determines the relations among states. But international relations kind of explains the relations, which is pretty much close. I could see how people would get that confused, because I would. International relations is more neutral, that it's not good or bad. It just, basically is just there. Foreign policy is not neutral. It's the way these countries just kind of go towards their own interests. That's not a neutral subject. So, but international relations is very neutral. So let's see. So foreign policy in and of itself is part of international relations. So that's something that we want to make sure to separate. Let's see. Something else.
I think they go hand in hand. It's nice to think that when we're in school and we read about and we're in poli-sci class or whatever, and it sounds so good when we're reading from a textbook how these things are supposed to work and how they're supposed to be separate, but we know that's not the case. That's not how it works. And when we think about even business or our personal relationships and how we move in this world, nothing is ever black and white. They're all gray. They all have to rely on one another. So it sounds good, but that all those things really affect the African in many, many, many ways. And they're not these separate entities. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work like that. I haven't found one sector of government. I haven't found, at least from what I've seen, I haven't seen anything that says that they are these complete sovereign entities and that they move, autonomously from one another. I've never seen that. They all, in my opinion, relate or they have to work together. They I don't know, but I've never seen where these things don't shape or affect or impact whatever word you want to use on the next thing. They all kind of.
So tell me,
impact the African.
Comes to what you've done with foreign policy and everything before, is there any particular part of it that interests you, like any specific relations under foreign policy, whether it's like more so commerce and business, how it's done, making sure that all kind of whatever world or multinational corporations follow, one particular system or policy. Which that'll be hard to regulate.
Yeah.
But it depends on what you have in place. Or is it more so dealing directly with the people, not so much with just like corporations? Is there any one particular that you've thought of in detail and how it should be done? Probably from looking at what's currently going on in Africa or
regarding African?
Yeah.
So okay. It wouldn't be commerce. I'm always more so that even what I do right now, kind of working with the people and whatnot. But I've always been more interested in like the NGOs, the those type of entities that actually directly affect or just working with the people. So when we were talking about it before, I think a few shows ago, or maybe it was on a chat or something like that, or I think like your first show or something.
Mm-hmm.
But we were just talking to Afrikan as far as diplomacy and how would it actually affect the people. Those things to me interest me because that's your daily life. Not to say that none of those other things matter, but I feel like sometimes those things are overlooked about how things are really going to affect those people's everyday life. So I'm more interested in actually forming those relationships with the bordering countries, and so we can help and put in place something that a foundation that is definitely going to be conducive for the people that are going to live there, their way of life. The idea that we're going to be totally secluded from other countries and government isn't. It won't happen. Right, it won't happen. So although we we have our own ideals and how we want to govern ourselves and how we, and the culture that we're going to cultivate there, it's still going to be, we're still going to have an impact. We're still going to have some effect from the neighboring country. When we think about commerce, when we think about those, when we think about commerce, we're going to be affected by those things because we're going to need to do business.
Right.
We have to form those type of relationships. So for me, although that was my discipline, like I've always been more into working directly with people and definitely empowering those people to do a lot for themselves and really cultivating relationships like that. So I've never been into more so like the college part or the politics in that way, but mainly focusing on policies that actually empower and affect those people, their daily lives. So when we talk about that, we're like, okay, we have to form relationships with Angola, with, whatever. I know we don't really, whatever, but you have to talk and what's going on with them and the relationships that they're forming, how would that really affect us? Those things matter. Those things are important, how we're going to live daily life. Because we're not going to go there and just be in our own little bubble. And I think, I don't know, were we talking about it, Belle, that someone was actually coming up with something like that, where it was like this bubble that they wanted to live in?
We're going to go and isolate ourselves. As if we would, like, sustain ourselves by doing that. We're going to go there and isolate ourselves and just, hide and, and have our own enclave. And basically not, I guess that, I don't know what they were getting at, but I'm like, wow, that sounds like a good way for, like, you might as well commit suicide. But I'm like, it sounds like a good way to make
That's no way to live.
That sounds ridiculous. But, I mean, it's more Negro stalling tactics. We've heard them all before. That's all it was. But going back to what you said, you mentioned something earlier about, like at one point you did have high hopes for Obama early on. I think a lot of us have, and for what it was. And you see, like, whatever is going on right now with Kenya and his involvement in that. And I haven't looked too much into it, so I can't speak on it. But Vic Shepard said 44, referring to Obama, set us back a few years. We want to know if you can talk a little bit on that, like how did Obama affect foreign policy and in regards to the BAIO mission?
I think it's called Afrikan or something like that, but
Afrikan.
But I did believe in him in the beginning. I was really into politics at one point, and I believed in, and I know this doesn't reflect everyone to be BAIO or anything like that. At one point, I really did believe in the political process. I felt like we probably aren't where we need to be in the political because we're doing it wrong and anticipating. This is why things aren't happening the way they should happen, So I voted for him, and I was excited. And then I was told several times that he isn't just our president. He's everybody's president. So, that means... Right, so that means we're put in the back burner. Right. So once again, we're the stepchildren. We get put on the back burner, as some people would say. So, in the very beginning I did. And even with the whole thing with Bin Laden, with the whole thing with Libya, I said there has to be a good reason. This is very recent, and I still was saying this has to be a good reason because I wasn't hip to everything that oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. What's the Arab dude for One Africa in Libya? Oh my gosh, Gaddafi. Sorry, I wasn't hip to everything with Gaddafi. I wasn't hip to everything that Gaddafi was for. And how he has kept Libya stable and how he was trying to make other countries stable in the one currency. I wasn't completely hit with that. But then to know that once he was killed, all of the infrastructure and how it fell and what it gave rise to. Now I don't know. It's kind of disheartening, but then you see the role, and this is going off topic, but you see the role that Obama and other people like him, the role that they play. Because, I was going to say, given his genetic makeup and the role that they tend to play in the affairs of the African, what I'm really speaking of.
Right. No, I was just.
We get caught up in thinking because he looks like us that he's going to be for us. And although we have a lot of as many of the Africans are, and they still pray, you know, and when you put all that in perspective, you see. But again, you know, the destabilization of Libya and this government and all of these Africans, just the Arab slave trade alone is just disgusting, and he has played a part in that. But a lot of us wouldn't know that. You know, he has definitely played a part in that. And again, like I said, and I've actually watched this speech myself, and he was in Kenya. It's on YouTube. But he, again, his main point for going there was just to talk about gay rights. And I just found that to be extremely inappropriate. Because that's really not inappropriate. Yeah, that's beyond inappropriate. But that's not the Africans' issue. That's not the Kenyans' issue. Kenyans have way more things going on besides gay rights. Right. You know what I'm saying? And to me, like, that's if you talk about Black Lives Matter, then this comes up, or the Me Too. It's always something else to kind of shadow the main issue, and that's a scary thing. And that we allow that to occur. And he goes to these countries, and he went to South Africa too, and I can't remember the other country, but I mean, I know for a fact, like, I watched the one in Kenya, and that's what he talked about. And I was just like, what? This makes no sense. That's not the Kenyans' issue. It's not what, you know, like, they got so many other things going on, but yet this is what you want to, and in order for them to take this aid, and like I said before, this is nothing new as far as, like, how foreign policy works and how they get, you know, it's coercion as far as they, you know, like, oh, if you want foreign aid from us, your women, your children have to be immunized, and then you have the whole thing with all your women have to be on birth control, and then next thing you know, now they have these issues where people can't they can't get pregnant or whatever. This has happened in Haiti. This has happened everywhere. This has happened in every Black country you can think of, and it's just like we never steps behind every single time. Same thing happened in Nigeria. I can't remember who was. I think it was the UN, and was it not the UN? Oh gosh, I can't remember who it was, but they had the same thing where like a million or more women were. The same thing happened in Kenya a couple years ago. They were sterilized, and whatever shot that they received, they couldn't have children. Yeah, I think it was Kenya and Nigeria was one, but like, we never see this until after. It's always this. It's always this thing where
whatever immunizations they received. Yeah, so that was. Yeah. I mean, it's obvious that was. I'm like, really? How did that become a side effect? So, you know, it had to have been intentional. And now like fertility clinics are coming like all over the place in Kenya, which is sad.
Right, but the leadership, when you think about it, those officials, they go on TV, they encourage the women to participate, especially the women.
Well, they
encourage the women to bring their children every time.
And think of like probably all the foreign aid they allowed to come in for like medical resources. Like, oh yeah, we're going to come and give you vaccines and save you from all these diseases that you guys get exposed to. And then bam, you have no control over what they're bringing in. You had no part in whatever medication it was they're bringing in. It's not like you have, you know, some type of, you know, like system to make sure, like, okay, what are you guys bringing in here and what's in it? You know, like you're basically you're at mercy. You're just like, okay, you know, our people are getting hurt. They're dying from whatever it is, like what is malaria, Ebola, any of that. So if you can help them, fine, we'll take it. You know, instead of, and then this is what you get. Now you got a population that is going to be half of them can't reproduce. So and that's really
insane. Sad. The same thing happened in Haiti. The birth control pills. You know, all of this is that's real. That's real. They would not assist our people there until they listen. It's coercion, and like this is the part. These are policies, and the sad thing is, it's one of those weird things. Like we don't like. It's like the follow the money trail type of thing. Most of these most of these policies are still funded by the African anyway. It's our resources that go to these governments that then fund these institutions that you know what I mean, that help get these policies enacted, and also again they provide government they can provide aid every time, and we don't see it. They extract like trillions of dollars, and then they want to give us a couple million back, but then now a strings attached to it, and like again you don't see it until afterwards.
Yeah.
Why is he driving so slow?
Decades
later. Oh my God. Yeah. When you realize you can't produce the same way, and all of a sudden all these diseases come about, and everything like that, and again, like just when we think about mending relationships, it was like 4 different articles over the last week or so that I just saw about like the Portuguese coming back to Angola, and they're trying to work on everything, and it's like, what is going on? And it's just, I don't know, it's something that we should definitely be wary of, and that we should pay attention to. What does that mean, and why why are they there?
Yeah, no.
What relationship?
It's yeah. I mean, it's heartbreaking to think of in mass numbers like this. But for you guys in the chat, there's similar. Well, I don't want to say exactly similar going on in the U.S., but more so in a different, subtle way. Our fertility issue in the U.S., like in African American women, we have a high number. We're at higher risk for some reason they haven't really been able to found, but actually led to some things that prove that it's related to it. But we're more likely to get fibroids. You guys don't understand. Basically, fibroids are fibrous tissues and masses that form around the uterus, and basically will make a woman sterile. She's unable to have children, mainly because her uterus cannot hold an egg. The walls are thin, or the masses, the fibroids and stuff around it will keep the egg from attaching to the wall, so it can now grow into an actual embryo and baby. But one of the key things that they say they haven't been able to find out why it's higher in African American women, but they found that chemical hair products is related to having a higher risk of fibroids. Actually, perms and a lot of these hair straighteners have been. What it does is basically leaks into the scalps, and it automatically affects the hormones. That's one of the first things that really affects potently. That has been found to find that they can cause fibroids. But yes, and Lish just said tampons, pads. They're finding that it's relating to a lot of the issues too. So a lot of girls are going a lot more natural ways, ones that doesn't have so many chemicals in it.
Has the FDA done anything about that?
and mind you, yes, these things have to be FDA approved to be released here.
Right.
So right. I have a whole litany of issues with the FDA, and it's almost like if you're paying the right person, they'll just turn and look the other way. Like it's ridiculous. Like their existence, I'm starting to think is designed to kill us. And this is just like American.
And the FDA, they provide policy on how things are administered and how we ingest. This is a government entity again.
Right? Yeah. The FDA is responsible for the food we consume, making sure we can consume it. Any of the drugs we take, especially if they're prescription drugs, or if you go with natural substances, they can't really help with that. And they also go towards like beauty or any chemical-based product that can possibly be anything that can be consumed within our bodies. Even if you put it on your skin, if it can be absorbed in the skin, they are responsible for regulating that. ODOS 80 said FDA stands for Federal Death Administrators. That's so true. But it's like
right. And again, like, and remember, they also apply policies and formulate these policies because they're the ones that also. Right, they're the ones who say, okay, if you put for pharmaceutical companies, they're the ones who say you have 7 years to hold the rights to that prescription before it goes into generic. They're the ones who also put out, they formulate policies as far as surgeries. and what doctors are allowed to put in your body. They do all of that.
All of that.
And yet we can still play perms, but when it comes to us, yeah, perms are safe, and we still put in our hair. Yeah, you can do,
Seriously, yes, like those relaxers, yeah. Don't be surprised if she's a woman who has like a history of chronic fibroids. I would really, now I'm like linking it to the perms they get. Like, okay, how often are you straightening your hair? And hell, this could be the expense you're paying. So it has been found to do that. And it's sad because a lot of women know and they still do it. So, I mean, whatever.
Right.
Okay, you can't.
But sis, what's crazy is that there was another article that was out, and it stated that there's been a drastic decline in our women using waxes and perms in their hair. However, it was just on a news channel, and it went viral. And now they have found other products in foods. So
wait,
we're not going to get this way.
Just repeat that because it broke up a little bit there. Can you repeat that? Say it again.
Okay, sorry. So what's oh man, did it go out?
No, you're back on. It kind of clicked for a little bit.
Okay, great. Sorry. So I'm taking the long way to New York. So that's why I'm going. I'm driving to New York. But so I'm like on this back road where all these farms are. So what I was saying is that was one of the main black hair care products, were perms and relaxers. But there's been a recent study that showed that it's been a drastic decrease in using those products. But they also found that some of the same harmful chemicals are in other products that they claim are for natural hair and stuff. They're in regular products now. So yes, it was buy one everything. So what I'm saying is that when they say they're gonna get you, they still gonna find a way to get you. These same products are being tested or supposed to be tested by the FDA. Now this one buy one everything, like they was on some news channel and whatnot. I can't remember, but it was also another lady on YouTube, and she was showing like all the stuff that's in a lot of these products that say, oh, great for natural hair. They actually say great for natural hair, like from L'Oreal and all of them, and bam, a lot of the same stuff is in those products. So they're gonna get you some type of way.
They're like, oh, you thought you were gonna stop using perms? We're gonna try something.
Exactly. Right, because most of our sisters don't. I see more sisters now that wear lace fronts or natural hair, or their natural hair these days than actually permanent. Like I do see more of us trying to get away from it, but I think, yeah.
I'm happy to hear that. Then at this point, I'm happy that I use shea butter and coconut oil. So.
Right, I use stuff you can actually eat. Yeah, me too.
Yes,
I use stuff that we can actually.
Holub asked the question. Hope we did not discuss that. He said, have they discussed the concept of an African outreach center? That's a good one.
Oh, no, we haven't, but I would definitely think that's important. So you mean as far as an outreach regarding what kind of services? Everything, like a total wraparound or wraparound service, like,
is it like everything?
Mental health, everything, or?
Yeah, so I'll give him a chance to answer that. Okay. Vic Cooper said, have to be like Prince Akeem, just use berries and juices. No, I mean, we have a lot of our kitchen products can actually do much better at moisturizing our hair than anything we get in the store. Like how I use like olive oil, coconut oil, all that, especially with locks too, because it's going to be hard to retain moisture in them. So.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But again, as you pointed out, I think someone else said in the chat, how we're so naive, but this is a great example of that. We assume that our government is working for us. And that doesn't mean that's just the African that's in America, but that's just all over, We assume that the elected officials and those government entities work for us, but that's usually not the case. They're lining their own pockets or whatever the case may be, or really working to annihilate us. It's one of those, it's bigger than a conundrum, but that's the issue. That's the issue. I don't want to assume like I have to look. When I shop, I read everything. thing is ridiculous unless it's something I always get. But you have to be like an investigator in your daily life all the time. All the time. You can't trust them.
He said, wraparound, question mark, unfamiliar with that term. So going back to the question about the African Outreach Center. In terms of it encompassing, you're talking about in terms of encompassing everything from what?
That's what I was asking him. So the term wraparound, I mean, we use it a lot in like social services. So it means that you provide services that will help in like every aspect of that person's life. So that would be like mental health,
childcare,
finances, like right. So that's like wraparound. So that they are receiving care or continual care in every aspect of their life. So that's
we can basically,
that's what I mean by wraparound. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, actually, I do like that idea, but that'll have to be something that we vote and develop on. But no, I actually do like that idea. But again, I don't want to make another welfare system, so that's what I'm trying to.
So that's what I was about to say. That's the issue.
So he got a little bit more specific. He said a cultural outreach center in other African nations that represent Afrikan. Okay, hold up. Thank you. That makes a lot more. That's a lot more specific. He said a cultural outreach center in other African nations that represent Afrikan.
Oh, that would be. That would definitely. Yeah, be beneficial. It would help with diplomacy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
I would have to think about what would entail, would entail, like just in detail, because I haven't really thought about that. But that would definitely help with the relationship aspect and integrating just with the foreign African and bringing and coming together with the especially with all the different nations that surround it, as far as tribes and nations, whatever you want to call it.
With that, now that I hear it for what it is, I would extend it to offering like some basic educational programs, whether it's for like the young people or even for the adults, to make sure that they have the tools they need to survive. Kind of just teach them, and then hope they use that knowledge and go forth and make magic happen, so to speak. But it's just more so giving them the education and knowledge that they probably can't.
But would that be okay?
And this is in my mind how I would like include it. I'm just thinking of it now, like, oh, okay, a cultural outreach center is a really good idea. And
it seems like it's almost a part of like the education, like the part of the infrastructure. So that's what I'm gathering, that it would be part of that, especially when we were talking about just teaching them some things like technical skills or anything that could help them in an economy or help grow the economy.
Exactly, help them survive in their own, whether it's like a basic trade and like you said, technical skills, something that they can survive in the environment that they're in. If we don't already have like a satellite community there. Oh, but then Donna said that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. All right, good. I'm interested in hearing about that.
The satellite community, great. And I will hope that cultural center will also make sure they encourage the arts as well. And when we talk about STEM a lot, but I feel like STEAM is very important. We always forget about all the other parts that make a society, and it isn't just technical skills or the sciences. I always feel like, what makes a culture a culture?
I know, we're STEM show and they cover so much more in detail of STEM, but then they do try to piece it together, like, okay, this is not the only thing. Just remember that, because for art, they understand that. For the arts part, you want to encourage creativity. You want to, because that, if they become the more creative, are the more likely they would actually succeed in kind of the STEM field. Now they can apply what they learn in STEM and create something bigger with that. This is how basically like an architect, they need to have some background, something in terms of creating an arts, critical thinking. Like you can combine the two and make something better out of it. So yes. So
I would definitely argue that the arts are definitely to me. I will argue one of the main ways to enhance a culture You know what I mean? It's the idea that, I mean, even when you think about how stories are told and how history is preserved, it's usually through the arts, you know? So you cannot forget about whether it's through music, dancing, whatever, like, that's how culture is, you know, transmitted, you know, throughout. It's like, it's the art.
And I'm sure they would agree too, like, because we did an education show a couple of weeks ago, so including that, you know, in early education. Like, because similar to what they do, I believe they do it in Finland and Norway or something like that. Basically, arts is the base of their education, or maybe not the base, but it's introduced very early on in the child's life, and they did away with all standardized testing because it worked. You know, they found that it worked backwards. It just makes them stressed out, increased risk of suicide. Kids would just forget and stuff. It just made, you know, they didn't want their kids hitting some criteria. They just wanted them to create. So I'd say introducing that early in life, like, you know, pre-K, kindergarten ages, and continuing that as we encourage science courses and math courses, and we start math early too, and just allow them to create something early, to have that creative, critical thinking base. You know, by the time they reach a certain age, it's like, okay, they know how to do it. And it's funny that we bring that up, and I'm sorry to sidetrack into education, because I actually had, when I was in school, in grad school, there was an Asian girl in my class, and, you know, we're all studying medicine, so science was nothing for her, math was nothing for her. She was like, oh yeah, of course, growing up in China, this is what we had to know, this was our base and everything. But she had the hardest time when it came down to us coming up with projects or scenarios, and like kind of coming up, creating something, and then problem solving. She can do the problem solving part, but the creation part, it would stress her out to the point, like, she just couldn't do it. She didn't understand that process. She's like, wait, create what? Like, she's like, arts is not something we focus on in China, or, you know, things that, you know, just using your ideas gaining ideas to start building.
That's sad.
Yeah, and then like I didn't even consider it. I was like, oh shit, that's so true. She's like, yeah, we're always stressed to know math and do math and do math and do math, and, you know, engineering, science, and all this stuff, whatever. But she's like, they barely teach arts. Now this was about 10 years ago, so I don't know if that actually changed. And she was telling me,
I doubt it. You see their relationship with nature now. I doubt it. I doubt it.
Oh yeah, no. Of course, like I definitely believe the guys understand art is important to just kind of create.
Yeah.
As they get older, to basically make something happen with all those science skills you took. You definitely have something there.
I just think that with the arts, it helps you see the world. I just feel like it really helps you see the world in a more of a connective way. I've never grown up, like, you know, I can't imagine just growing up and seeing things just black and white, when that's just not how life is. Yeah, everything is connected. It's just not. Everything is connected, and just the things that I've read and the research I've done with how we traditionally were. That's how we saw things. Everything is connected, and just to have this idea where you only use one part of your brain to solve things is just you know, I don't know. It's just not right. It's just not my eye at all. It's just not a balance there at all. And again, like I said, I can see there being an issue for her when you just think about Asians in general. I mean, the relationship, although, I mean, I guess we always consider them to have, like, this relationship with nature, but, you know, honestly, that's not true. But they have, like, in that area, they do have an issue with oh my gosh,
I mean, it's so separate.
It's just driving me nuts that I can't. I'm thinking at the same time and driving. I guess I can't do both. It's ridiculous.
No, it's okay.
But when you think about just all the radio, like when you think about their relationship with the doping, they have an issue with doping as well, and an issue with their environment situation, as far as a lot of radioactive stuff that's going into our oceans and how they view that. And again, that's probably because they don't see it the same way. They don't see it that it's all connected. That what you put in that ocean is going to return back into your body. And I'm only saying that because of it makes sense as far as it makes sense regarding the training and how they see things. We didn't naturally think that way. That's not on a spiritual tip. That's not on anything. That's just history. We just didn't do that. So I would love for STEAM, STEAM, to be a part of to be a part of our curriculum and our culture, because that's important. It's just not about the sciences and math and engineering. It's not just about that.
Right. And trust me, like our members, they definitely understand that. We do. We actually because we have a few art groups now, an architecture and design group and arts and culture group. So be sure to join that. It's definitely on the Ning site, so they definitely get that. You're not the first person to share that sentiment, and they all agree. Everyone agrees with that. So that's for sure.
Yeah, the free thinkers always comes from the art and stuff like that. It just appears that way to me that a lot of free thinkers
so loosely now. I can't even take it. Probably because of all the Kanye West nonsense. Like free thinker, I'm like, you know what? I'm so done with that.
Oh, I didn't know that's what he's been saying. I don't even.
Well, I mean,
I've been avoiding that.
I've been avoiding that too. I didn't realize all of what was going on until I was just recently catching up, and I was like, oh, geez. Like, man, that's... So,
I saw it on Instagram. Yeah.
I was like, oh, he's just having a public meltdown.
But yeah, he wants to make this whole thing, and some of the people that kept tagging me and stuff, and they're really liberal. And I'm like, no, the liberals are the same way. The conservatives are like, they're all the same. Take it. But you know. Right, the liberals are pro all those birth controls and abortions and all that type of stuff that directly affects the Africans, because that's dwindling our numbers. It's not a coincidence. It is done that way for a reason, you know. Right. So there's so many ways that we're being taken off the planet. You know, you gotta be really, 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 you know, aware of those type of things like that. I mean, I guess the day that I see that they start pushing that over there in the continent, I'm going to be done. Like, if I start hearing abortion this or women's rights, you know, I'm going to lose it.
Well, some areas still do kind of, I don't think they go hard on women's rights. They just kind of bring it up and say, okay, you know, like, yeah, the women here are doing this. They kind of do that not like the American feminist stuff, but they do kind of. I've seen it a few topics where they're just like, and, you know,
Malema he spoke for, it was like Women's Day or something not too long ago. Women's Day, women's something, and he had a speech about that, about women, and I was like, okay.
No, I don't know to the extent of like how hard they're going over there. I want to say it's not, but I can't really see because I'm not over there, so I can't really say. But
that would be the day you start seeing abortion clinics. I would. Yeah, it's just they're saying that and the only reason why I bring that up is because the liberals. Yeah.
Like you can't be having fertility clinics and abortion clinics. They cancel each other out. You gotta pick one.
Right.
Like pick one struggle, ladies. Come on.
Right.
Go through both.
It's sad, but that's what but some people see that as progression, and that was the point, you know, as far as like, there's no political side, in my opinion, that is for, you know, for real, true progression, like African progression or liberation. It isn't. They're both there to do the same thing. They just use, you know, they use different words and terminology and stuff like, you know, terminology and whatnot, but they're all there to do the same thing. And like I said, it's going back to Obama. I thought he was going to be that person. You know, unfortunately, when he became president, I was 20. I can't remember, but early 20s or whatnot. And I felt like he was going to be that savior because he looked like me. But I got bamboozled in that. And so I assume that our brothers and sisters over there in the continent, it's harder for them to differentiate who's really for them because most of the people that are there look like them. It's not like how it is for us,
right?
You know, in the diaspora where you're the Asian, you're the white, you're this. It's kind of a little easier to tell who our enemies are or whatnot. But you can't really do that there. So
yeah, that must be heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So Any other questions in regards to foreign policy, people? I know we didn't really
go. We kind of got off, and I'm sorry.
No, this is what the conversation does, and I like it like that, so that's fine. I knew we were gonna even we couldn't even dip a toe into the whole topic of foreign policy. It's just so broad. Like, I want to do this again and just kind of break it down to different. It is so broad, and it is it's really, really important. Obviously, we know that, but to develop something, to really set something in place and plans, it's like it'll take several, probably hundreds of shows to cover it in and of itself. So
I agree, because I think that sometimes we forget that we're even a part of that. As far as the states, the states really have they really impact Africa also, and a lot of times it's just focused on Asia and the UK and whatnot. All these other entities.
Even what we're trying to do, what we're attempting to do, it really would depend on host countries' foreign policy. It would a lot on that, so we gotta take that into consideration. Now, I mean, some of these countries, they don't have like a very complex or crazy system that just blocks anyone from coming in. It's almost like their policy is if you grease the right palms, it's all yours. So
that's what it seems like. That's what it seems like. Because even when you think about, like a friend of mine is from Ghana, and we're just talking about like as far as their foreign policy and land ownership. But then I was like, well, how is it that you got agents over there right now that just building complexes and digging for gold? Like, what are we talking like? And it does seem like it depends on who you are, and again, who palms you greasing. It really does. It really does. But when we talk about just like even the foreign African returning home and land ownership and businesses and these policies and how they affect us from actually doing that, because a lot of times some people are discouraged on even going there because of those policies.
Right.
And he's from Ghana, and he doesn't know if he's going to move back because of because he was actually born here, but how those policies are and how they affect him and his family. So
yeah. No, I mean that's what it is. Unfortunately, really, really unfortunate. But yeah, I hear people talk about the property thing in Ghana, and some people are like, well, no, 99 years, and it's like, that's enough for a few generations. But, after that, don't really know. A lot of people say, oh, it's nothing that happens after that. It's just like whatever, you can keep it. But again, rules and laws can change. Who knows? So I'm like, I don't know, like it just seems to, and it's probably because of us, in our Western mindset, quote unquote, where we want, we need things to be black and white in terms of rules and regulations.
I agree.
And stuff. So I'm like, it's partly because of that. But then in other countries, do they have like a hard, fast rule? Like, okay, no, you can either have land or, you can't, or you can within these terms.
Right. Or do they have policies that can kind of override that? That's like an eminent domain type of thing. Right. What would that do to us then? Even if they say, yeah, you have this, you can own this, but then they have some type of crazy clause like, but if such and such were to occur, we can still take your land and you're out. You gotta go.
Right.
We don't know.
And truthfully, like my biggest thing is really, it's not even so much of land at this point. It really is about the citizenship. That's what I care about. I'm like, oh, no. Can I get dual or not? Am I going to have to wait 10 years? Do I have to reside here for this? Like what am I going to be on? Like a visa this whole time? Or like, like that's what really kind of catch my attention. Like what is
right. And we talked about that, I think, in your first show, because we were all concerned about that too. And I mean, again, that's another part of the policy situation is, when we're able to move forward, who will we be citizens of? How are we going to be protected? Because you need government protection.
Right.
When we move around the world, regardless of how we feel about the states, we're still protected by the states overall. You know what I'm saying? We're still protected by America, and for the person that's from the UK, etc. But when you move into a situation like this, will I have some protection from I'm naming other countries besides, but like, would I have protections from Ghana? Would I have protections from Nigeria, or whatever country? Would I still, would I be considered and viewed as a citizen? You want to know that. You want to know you're protected. All that stuff matters. Whoa.
That joke was a crazy joke.
Oh my gosh. Sorry.
Oh no, you guys okay?
It was a huge hill and kind of dropped real hard.
Yeah, I heard that. Let's see.
Well, see, we're going this way to avoid a bunch of tolls, so we're taking all these back routes, and it's like
I hear you. I gotta take that route next week, actually.
Oh, it is next week?
Next week, I'm coming to New York, so I gotta finish up a bunch of work before I get there.
Are you still driving to DC?
You made us do this.
So I'm gonna get to DC, and then from DC, I'm driving to New York because my flight is from DC. Oh, and
well, let me know if you're able to stop.
What happened?
Yeah.
She's good. They said, what happened? We all heard that.
Oh no. I guess I should have went down the hill slow, but I just went up the hill pretty fast, and then I just dropped down.
I didn't distract you too much. Are you talking?
I didn't know it was going to be such a steep hill down, so we kind of just flew down and just hit. I can drive, I promise you. I can drive, but yeah.
Kofi said they driving an off-road Land Rover.
I wish it was a Land Rover. Yeah, but yeah, we were all in the back to try to avoid all these crazy, because it's like $100 almost. It's crazy.
You see, that's what I was just thinking. I was gonna asking my brother. I'm waiting for him to get back to me, but I know he was like, "Man, take the back roads." But I'm taking his car, so that's as long as he cool with me taking the back road. I'm taking his car. That's fine. But going back to Dendata said 99 years. What if I live until 92?
You out of luck.
You're gonna be out of house and home by a certain time.
Right, because think about it. That's the scary thing to me too, because that's what another generation could be too. But the fact is, the original landowner will not be there most likely. You're with somebody, they can have like, no, I want this land back. I plan on doing X, Y, and Z. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's another thing that concerned me, because people think of going for most of us think like, okay, generational wealth, black wealth, all that stuff, and you go there and hoping to build a business. What if you build a business on that land and it goes for 2 generations? What happens after that? Like after the 99 years? That's another thing.
I don't know. What I would hope by that time, given that could be like 2 generations, what I would hope for the foreign African is that we would be more involved in the political process. Right. That's what I would hope. So I would hope that whether we be in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, wherever, that we would have a strong presence in the political arena. That would make a huge difference, because then we would have a voice as the foreign African. Because think about it. If this was 2 generations and we were to actually stay there for good, then our children would be citizens. They would not see things exactly how we see it, being the foreign African. It's just like how it is for them over here. Their children are American, regardless of how they want it. I mean, I know some person, like the guy that I was talking about, he is just as African American as I am. Mm-hmm. He does not act like his parents. He doesn't see the country like his parents see the country or whatever. So I would just assume by that time at least we would be really integrated, hopefully, but we would have a presence in the system to kind of change those things. But that's the problem with policies like that, with laws like that.
What's interesting is, now that you bring that up, a lot of the people who probably repatriated, those are the ones who probably want nothing to do with policies and political systems, because they probably, sick of the U.S., rightfully so, and just like all that mess. They're probably just like, I want nothing to do with this. Now, hopefully, their children or the next generation will get involved. But with that mindset, who knows? That's interesting that you say that, because that would
I
be really,
agree.
they're
I agree, because
involved.
I straddle the fence with that too, because I'm kind of so over
Right. All of what's
the
going on.
politics here. But because it would really affect the children, that's something you have to get involved in, because that's the livelihood of your children. And I mean, not to say that's not the same here, but I feel like it's already been built in that it's against it. But I mean, in the continent, like on the continent, I just feel like at that point you would have to make some measures to be represented to kind of protect your offspring in that situation. Because land ownership is everything. That is their wealth there. Land ownership is everything. So I don't know how to get around that.
Right. And Ronan Black asked a question. He said, I BAIO contact embassies or officials in African nations in regard to citizenship requirements. When I actually looked at a few places, and this was just like random, just kind of like, let me see who has what. And I looked at stuff that was more landlocked, not so much that I was interested in it. It's just countries that I kept hearing their names pop up, like Zimbabwe, Zambia. What else? Like a few other ones. Hell, the ones I should have I looked at in detail, I didn't. But the ones that I looked at, it was all like basically either had to get married to get one, or be like a 10-year resident and then apply. And then even that
in your
process. Business.
Yeah. And they said, did you see what? Because I looked at some and they have a clause for business too, but some vary on the capital.
Yeah, the business one. That's true.
Yeah, but then some vary on the capital, and you think like for the average African, like foreign African that's coming here, they may not have that much capital. Like some of them had
And all of these places, it was easy. They said starting a business was easy, but now the business success. That's another question.
Right.
And what happens in that area if something breaks out and things start just going to shit, and your businesses within that area, it's just like, well, damn. Like recently, in Ghana, they shut down like 400 or 500 Nigerian businesses. I was like, damn. So
that's crazy.
That's a lot of business.
What about the Chinese though? I'm curious. I want to know how many Chinese businesses they closed down.
And Kofi said, what kind of leverage would an entity like ours need to have in order to have political rights?
What kind of leverage? Oh.
Yeah. I mean, stuff is coming to mind, but that's since you just joined the chat, you can answer that question or hold up a finger in there. What kind of leverage would an entity like ours need to have in order to have political rights?
I have something about, but I just, that's.
And to go into that, Kofi's asking the question in regard to not thinking of us as an entire nation per se, like if someone just wants to go to a country and live there. Well, yeah, and I knew Kyle was going to answer that. We need control of our territory. But imagine if a person want to go to just live in a particular area, kind of be part of like a satellite community or so to speak. Because he said, Kyle said we need to control our territory. Fund a campaign.
Well, what did you say, Kofi say? What? I didn't hear it. It's hard to hear you now.
Oh, no, he said, what kind of leverage?
I heard that part. That was Kofi too? Oh, I thought it was something.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, so he was speaking of it as in terms of the BAIO specifically as our own nation. Now I'm reading it again. Would an entity like ours have in order to have political rights? He said, you could fund a campaign, we could control the votes. So that's something to think about. So I didn't think about that in detail.
I think so.
I'm thinking of like capital and cash, like what everyone else has. But initially, when we go over there, that's that may not be the case.
I don't know. I guess you would have to see. One of those things you got to see what they, as far as leverage, that means you have to figure out what they want or what they need.
And
because leverage to me and leverage to someone else is totally different. I would not.
I think of leverage as like capital. But
as far as but what would that capital? Because they all vary. Well, not Yeah, they all vary.
It could be the resources or, what we have. So yeah, it all depends. Good question though. Dawood says this might be a little outside this convo, but what kind of negotiations would we need to use our seaport for a form of trade or income?
What kind of negotiation?
Right. Will we need to use our seaport for a form of trade and income? Kind of like shipping?
Yeah.
Like shipping.
Well, taxes. I mean, tax comes to mind. There's
true taxes. How are we gonna?
Yeah, you could do right. Like a tax comes to mind, so that other people can use it, use it for their businesses.
And yeah, that's a good question. Would it be? I guess would it be different for other African countries on the continent, or even if we were, if we trade with like other countries where there's other African Americans, like America, or if there's like.
No, I think it should be with everybody. I don't know, for me.
Yeah, I mean, it will tax them, but I guess the rates would be different. So
right, the taxes would apply to anyone, I would assume, that wants to use it, because we're talking about for the economy, so right. I don't think that we should be prejudiced in that respect. I don't think it would matter.
No. I'm just saying, like, taxes in general, like the rate of it, like how it changes.
Oh, the rate. I mean, would the rate? Oh, you said like so the rate be different for the citizens that are there?
Right, like, or less for, like, say another African nation that's, not directly, like say we're trading with West Africa and we're in Southwest Africa or something, or South Africa, so something, just kind of like something that's going to.
Or like a tier system. Right. Yeah.
It's something
I don't know. I think that's something you would just have to think about. Like, especially, I guess I would have to be there. It's one of those things you would think about: who would come through there, what would they be shipping, to know how to charge them as far as that tax. If that's, right. Because would a person from Southeast be all the way over there and Southwest, or, I don't know. You have to consider all that type of stuff and who would normally use it.
Right.
And what they would use it for. Yeah.
But Kala did answer, I guess, some of the questions. He said you need political power and connections in Africa, but that makes money. That takes money in kickbacks. This is going back to like the leverage. Then he said we need to bring in industry and become buyers of local goods and technology professionals. Definitely.
I agree.
Yeah, I was talking to someone wanted to just go to an existing nation. Oh, okay. Okay, thanks for that, Kala. Talking in terms of us as a nation state, I think you answered that one too, with political power. He said, as we would be on the hook of the coming African debt repayment. That would be true. We need our own banks, satellites, USD currency. Okay, yeah, no, these are some decent leverages, and I'm sure there's way more.
There's a whole lot. Yeah, so many.
This is a very broad topic, and it literally needs to be broken down into categories and, have those things broken down into more detail. So, and we didn't even dip a toe in the topic of foreign policy and how that works.
There's just so much. Yeah, so much stuff.
No, I like these discussions. They give so much thought, like things we didn't think of. And then, you think of it and it's like, oh, yeah, so how do I go from this?
Agreed.
That is interesting. But any other questions, people? She is and this is a discussion we need to have because Africa says come home, but to what? That is true. That's our question.
I didn't hear that. What was the comment?
Kala said this is a discussion we need to have because Africa says come home, but to what?
Right.
Right, yeah, which is why these topics keep popping up.
Right. I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. There's so many things that I may not like here, but you don't want to go somewhere else and have worse problems and stuff. Yeah.
Right, because they'll be so open-armed about it, just kind of like, no, come here. You want land, we'll give you land. And it's like, okay. And it's like, you don't want to be negative or pessimistic. But it's like, okay, listen, I understand, you know, like, thanks for offering it and everything. Really, really appreciate that. But I need to know the finite details. And it might be our Western mindset that we want the finite details. And we're not, because our, you know, when we think of going, it's not so much for like just solely retirement or, you know, like Calla would say, laid on a beach and sipping Mai Tais. It's like, no. Like, I want to build business. I want to do this. I want good education for my family. Like, all the things that, you know, we want all of that, you know. So, like, healthcare, we want all of that. So, what do we got over there in place? And then you find out, well, you know, well, it's not that bad, but then it's really bad. It's like, okay, this isn't working. Oh, yeah, and then, you know, China's taking over. They took over. You know, it's like, oh, geez. So then it's like, okay, which is why I'm so grateful for BAIO, because it's just like, okay, we can do this, but it has to be done in a particular way where we can have all the things that we are used to and all of the things that we really want even more, and we're running so, you know, we can put that out there so it's available to everyone. And you're not just going to a place where, well, if you can afford to pay for school, you can go to school. It's like, okay, that's not good. That's not good. So,
Right. It's one of those things you really have to be really thorough in analyzing all the different ways we can be, you know, affected by the change. You know, it's because not just us is going to be affected, but you know, for our local brothers and sisters that are there, and you know how we just maneuver all together, and our children. It's so many. Just like you said, there's so many things, so many variables that come into play.
Right.
And that's going back home. So I don't know. And it's something I think about.
Besides the culture shock, it's like, you know, like, okay, what do we got there? Like, how's the healthcare system? In certain places, it's just not good. Like, I'm part of my professional organization in Ghana, actually, and really what I do is try to keep up with what's going on over there in terms of healthcare. And right now, it's not good. It's not good at all. So, like, it was so funny because there's another Black American in that organization, and she was talking about how she wants to go. Her husband was like, he wants to go back, repatriate Ghana, all this stuff, because, you know, a lot of people are doing that now. And she's basically asking, how is the system working over there, where she can, you know, initially get into work and be, you know, get into that. So, and it's not like we immediately think, okay, people are like, well, you can just build your own business. Your own health clinic. And it's like, yes, I could, but ideally you don't just do that in a place you're not familiar with. Like, that can go really wrong. So she was asking about not so much building a business, but working in your current health system, and how it's working. And it was just, oh my goodness, I was just looking at the replies to her, and it was so bad. It was literally Ghanaian saying, don't do that, don't come here. Don't, like, you will, like, you better off staying where you are, because we're getting paid dust. We're not respected. You know, like, the Ministry of Health is, there's investigations of corruption, and like, it was just so much shit that you're just like, oh my God. It was like, oh, why is this such a bad idea right now? So then I was just like, oh man. And they were like, and as a matter of fact, how about you help us get over there where you are? And she's like, no, you got to stay over there and fight and make it better. And, you know, it starts off difficult, but they're just like, F this. But it's just, that's, I was like, oh, geez. So I just try to keep up with it to see what's going on. But yeah, I'm like, if the health system is a shit show, that's something that's really, really important. God forbid something happens. This will take, you know, like, you're going to be like, okay, well, I need to catch a flight, you know, back to the U.S. or somewhere else to get, you know, quality health care. And it shouldn't come to that. So that's definitely.
I know. Yeah.
A few more things they're talking about. Cal said we need satellite municipal centers so we can raise tax revenue to fund our infrastructure. Cal, we should do a whole show on that. That's a whole. I mean, that's a good one, but that definitely needs an entire show in and of itself, and probably multiple shows. Mr. Cat said they're talking about, like, specifically. Kofi said, we have to consider ourselves a part of some modern renaissance, a phenomenon that occurs throughout the continent. When blacks return to the motherland, lobby for a national return back to Africa. That's actually not a bad idea. That should, hell, you think they'd be doing that now?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm happy to just touch on this topic just to get you guys thinking, because Lou said it earlier. He said the more we talk about these things, the more we realize we need to talk about it. Yeah. And so, which is why I do these big ass broad topic shows that need a lot more shows, because I'm like, okay, I want you guys to think of this as not my specialty, so I can't go into it.
It seems so crazy because.
Yeah, I mean, it's really to like set the light bulb off in the people's head who really know about this or want to get into this, to talk about it a lot more, because I love the conversations that we're having now, where it's just like we've already we've connected with a lot of people, and now we can start planning and preparing and putting things in motion. And this is just a little, it's just like a very smidgen of stuff we're bringing up now, but it helps bring up people to look into it in a lot more detail, especially those who are already somewhat interested and already involved in it. So I love that we do this now. So like our content is more educational. So it's a lot more.
And it gives you way more to think about, because like I'm thinking like, wow, I have to look more into that. I have to research that a little bit more. Like it gives you a lot to think about. Sometimes we do a lot of surface thinking and we don't really like
go into the
like
right.
Yeah. So, hey, it gives me a lot to think about too.
Sam, so we're gonna cut this off. I have to finish it from work. She got to finish her drive. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and thank you, sis, for the time that for doing this while you're driving and multitasking and hearing the family in the background. And it's always a pleasure. We gotta do this again. Definitely do this again sometime.
Well, I really appreciate you inviting me here again, sis. I really do appreciate it. And again, to all of our family that are in the chat and that are listening, I really appreciate it and love you guys. So I just want to say thank you again, sis. I appreciate it.
All right, no problem. Peace, everyone, and peace, Adjoa. We'll catch up later.
Yes, we will. Peace, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye.